Thank you, Albert, for inviting me. Say a few words about IEEE transactions on neural networks and learning system. We have a designated website called www.pnns.org, and the scope of this transactions is technical articles that deal with the theory, design, and applications of neural networks and learning and related learning systems. So we have some more information on that website, including the impact factors starting from 1999 up to this year. As you can see, this year it is 3.766. So with this impact factor, it is ranked as the number 2 in all machine learning journals, as number 1 in computer science, hardware and architecture, number 2 in computer science theory and methods, number 8 in computer science artificial intelligence, number 9 in electrical and electronic engineering, and number 12 among all IEEE journals. And also the most recent IEEE report indicated that this transaction has a from submission to e-publication time as under 28 weeks, so that's under 7 months. Now, in terms of how to publish in IEEE transactions on neural networks and learning systems, I would always suggest the authors to read the information for authors posted on the website first and follow the instructions posted there as much as possible. And we currently have the following mandatory page charge policy. You get for full papers 13 pages for free, and brief papers 6 pages for free, and comments papers up to 3 pages. Now, if you have more than these page limits, you will pay $200 mandatory charge for each additional page. So this is a quick illustration of what you should be preparing. If your paper is really below 6 pages, you wouldn't submit it as a full paper because it won't be really considered as a full paper. So you really think that should be a brief paper. Now, if your paper is above 8 pages, then you can think of submitting it as a full paper. But if your paper is like on the boundary, like 7 pages, you really should decide what to do. You can either go with a brief paper with 1 page overlaps, or you can go with a full paper. But for really a full paper, you can try to think when you read all these transaction full papers, you don't see many of them are at 7 pages. So it's really on the boundary. It is a difficult case for authors and the editors. And very often we have survey papers which will be really, really long, like 18, 20 pages. So they can be long. And we would deal with them differently and separately. When you submit your paper, this information often will be required, whether the paper has been previously published, previously submitted, and previously rejected. If the paper has been previously published, then you are doing a duplicate publication that is really not allowed, and it will definitely damage your reputation. And in the end, when you really need this paper, for example, when you are doing your promotion and trying to get an award, someone will point it out, you have a duplicate publication in your record, which is really a bad thing for yourself. And if the paper has been previously submitted, then you are doing a duplicate submission. Sooner or later it will be found out by both journals, so the paper will be rejected. And sometimes your name will be placed on a blacklist because of your duplicate submission. And whether the paper is previously published, submitted, we really do have cases like this. So what I have here is a paper published in Neurocomputing back in 2006, and the exact same paper was also published in IEEE Transactions on Neural Networks in the same year. I mean, the same author, same content. This is really something odd. We don't see that very often, but you do have authors want to do that, and they feel they have one more publication in the journals, but this is a really bad thing. We have a graduate student doing research in this area, and he was reading both papers. So he has sent both papers to me and emailed to me. So I contacted the other editor-in-chief. We quickly determined this is a very bad case. It's a plagiarism. And we reported to IEEE and to others, so the authors get some sanction because of this. And recently we also have some cases regarding previously rejected papers. So very often an author, when they submit a paper, get rejected by the first journal, they decide to submit it to some other journals. So if the paper is submitted without going through a revision, it will be found out by some reviewers, because no matter which journal you submit, the reviewer database would have a lot of overlap with the other journal, and very often you end up with the same reviewer, and the reviewer will tell the journal editor that this paper was reviewed previously in another journal and it was not revised, and now it is submitted to this journal. So sometimes the journal editor would reject the paper right away, and some journal also started a policy to put such authors on a blacklist because you didn't revise your paper before your second submission. So after your submission to the transactions, after a few months, usually it will be 3 to 6 months, we get a review, come back, you get all these different cases. So for example, if you get all reviewers recommend to accept, and we would look carefully at the review comments, we may decide to accept the paper right away or asking for you to do a minor revision. And we may also get all reviewers recommend a minor revision, so depending on the review comments, we may ask you to do a minor revision or a major revision. Sometimes the reviewer recommending a minor revision but with some serious comments in the review sheet. We also can get all reviewers recommending major revision. So in this case, it is likely to get a major revision or a reject decision depending on the comments. Sometimes you can feel all these major comments added together would really take too long or too much work to revise the paper. However, if you get one reviewer to reject and other reviewers to recommend a minor or major revision, you often will get a paper rejected or get a major revision. And if you have 2 or more reviewers recommending to reject a paper with detailed comments, usually the paper will be getting rejected. So in terms of good papers for a transaction, we need high quality papers from high quality research, of course, and we need papers to be on good topics. So neural networks and learning systems would certainly include neural network theory and applications and related learning systems. And in terms of what you should do to increase your chance of getting your papers accepted and published, so one thing I'd like to suggest is that you should attend CII's conferences each year. And we have 3 flagship conferences in the odd year, and when it goes to the even year, we have the wiki. And the conference after this year, CEC 2013, It will be Wiki 2014 in Beijing, China. I hope everyone can go there. And when you go to conferences every year, you meet a lot of people, getting a lot of friends, so more people will know your name. And you should also try never to get on the blacklist. You can get your name on the blacklist by doing plagiarism, multiple submissions, and multiple publications. And right now, most of the IEEE journals would also use this cross-check during the submission process. After you upload your PDF file, the software will compare your submission with the database. The database basically contains almost all the papers published in journals and conferences. And they would compare your paper with the database to see if there is any overlap with any of the papers. So the threshold usually is set at around 30%, sometimes lower than 30%. And the alarm will be triggered when you exceed this threshold. And often the editor will ask you the question why your paper is so similar to this paper in question. And sometimes the author doesn't even cite that paper. So the second question will be why you didn't cite that paper. They are so similar. And the paper can be yourself, can be your own paper published previously. It can also be someone else's paper. In both cases are considered to be serious because we don't want any plagiarism case in this case. And you can also reduce your chance of getting paper published if you have previously published an incorrect paper or paper with incorrect results. So other things that can help you would be to join the IEEE Computational Intelligence Society, attending CIS conferences each year, serve as program committee members of CIS conferences, and publish your best paper in IEEE transactions sponsored by CIS Society, serve as associate editor for our transactions and magazine, and serve the society. How to become an associate editor for IEEE transaction on neural networks and learning systems? So first thing you need to do, you should have some publications with the transaction, and you should have served as a reviewer for the transaction. So if you don't have both, we really cannot trust you can handle the paper once you become associate editors. When you become associate editor, you will be the one to deal with authors and reviewers. So you want to be both. Before, as an author, you should publish papers, and as a reviewer, you should review papers for the transactions. And also, we want to always look for people who are reliable and responsible. Reliable meaning that you do things we can trust, and responsible means when we email you, when we contact you, should get back to us quickly without much delay. And you don't want to get a response after 2 weeks. That would be really too long. So if you can satisfy these three categories, you should contact the editor-in-chief to volunteer to become an associate editor for the transactions. We always need a volunteer to help. In particular, we need volunteers in some special areas in many cases. So if you are interested in becoming a reviewer, send me an email at either of these two email addresses. Thank you.